Hello, friends. Today I am thrilled to welcome Professor Emmanuel, a global leader in academic mentoring and innovation. From being a struggling PhD student to becoming a professor at Lancaster University, he has guided over 10,000 researchers worldwide to successfully complete their PhDs and secure academic positions. Professor Emmanuel is the director of the Future Cities Research Institute with over 130 publications and 9 million pounds in research funding and a mission to make academic careers more accessible and meaningful. Through his platform, PhD to Prof, he shares powerful strategies and AI-based tools that help researchers thrive in academia. Welcome to the show, Professor Emmanuel. How are you?
I'm good, and thank you very much for the invitation. I look forward to the conversation we're going to have about the use of
Oh,
AI in research.
mhm. Since I have introduced you a little bit, can you please tell me something about your journey till now?
Yes, I would probably say that I've done as a PhD and researcher every mistake that is there to be learned, to be done. But luckily, I've learned from my mistakes, and on the way, I had some amazing mentors that they really helped me make the most of academia, know how to be strategic, achieve more with less, and have good work-life balance.
That's great. Uh, like Professor Emmanuel, you have mentored thousands of PhD students worldwide. How do you see this artificial intelligence nowadays transforming the way researchers think, write, and publish today compared to when you began your journey? Could you please put
Sure.
some light on that?
Yeah. I finished my PhD in 2006, right? So between 2002 and 2006. So, back then AI probably did exist maybe in some research labs, but it wasn't such thing. It was very different. We still had digital copies of journals, but still you had to go to the library for a lot of things. So it was a different world. I have to say that also as an academic and still as a PhD supervisor, if you asked me that question maybe a year and a half ago, I would have said, "Oh, I don't buy into this whole AI thing." But obviously, I could see that since then things have developed. There have been some dedicated tools, AI tools, and agents for researchers. I've played and explored, and those who follow me on LinkedIn, they see that I post quite often from tools that
Yeah, I am
I like.
following your LinkedIn regularly. Yeah.
Um, so my view, in a sense, would be that if it's used responsibly and appropriately, AI can be your third or your second supervisor, or it could be your research assistant that helps you with some of the more laborious and mundane tasks.
Mhm. As like artificial intelligence, as you said that it can become our research partner. Like many researchers now use these artificial intelligence tools for writing, literature review, and data analysis. How do you define the right balance between AI assistance and human originality in research? Because this is very necessary that humans should be in loop.
Sure, I would say this is I would say the million-dollar question, and I would go beyond and say the human should not just be in the loop. The human should be in control and should verify.
Mm.
Um, I wouldn't use AI for the generative aspect, so for the writing, and I would be also very skeptical about the data analysis, and I can go in more details of why. Obviously, there's a difference when you use AI tools if you're an early career researcher. So it means you're training, you're learning on how to do research. And there's a difference, of course, if you're more established researcher. So you know how to do the research, and then you've got something that can still help you. So let's look at both cases. Let's say you're an early career researcher, maybe you're doing your PhD. And so therefore you're training on how to do research, how to write a literature review. Um, Although it may seem, yeah, it's great. I've got something that can save me a lot of time, and maybe English is not my first language, and therefore my writing will appear better. Um, the challenge is that um, if you follow that approach, you won't learn how to write in the academic language, which is a very specific way. It means that even if you graduate, although nowadays, of course, there's ways, more accurate ways to detect use of generative AI in writing. You will always have to rely on these tools. You never develop your academic voice and your distinct writing style, which is quite important later in your career. Um, and therefore, you miss on something quite important. And as some of my colleagues say, if the AI tool can do it for you, then why afterwards why don't we give the PhD to the AI, not to the student, or why hire a human as a PhD, as a postdoc, and not an AI system? If you're a researcher, you also may think, okay, I've done the training, so I know how to do this, and I want something that will help me to spend less time in writing, and then I can focus on more on my research or on my teaching, on other duties I have. And I give you the example of someone that has broken his leg. Don't know if you've ever been in a pleasant situation of having broken a leg or an arm and having to wear this cast the doctors put that restrains your movement for a month or even longer. Now, what happens is when you remove this cast and you try to lift your arm, or even worse, it's in your leg and you try to walk, your muscles would have weakened significantly. You would have lost muscular tone and weight, and you won't be able to work very well. Now, this is what happens if you're an established researcher and you use AI tools to do the writing for you. You lose all these skills you've developed. So these are the reasons why I would suggest, of course, beyond the ethical and responsible reasons as well, of not using AI tools to do the writing for you. That's not to say that there's other ways you can use them efficiently, and I can talk about this. But you also asked about data analysis, and that's a key thing. That varies, of course, depending on the country you are. But a concern that there is, especially when you're doing research under a university and you have applied for ethics, where is your data stored? And who has access to your data? Because when you apply for ethics, you need to be very explicit where your data will be stored. It needs to be a secured, encrypted space that only you, maybe your supervisor, has access. And with a lot of AI platforms and tools, it's not clear where they are. I can see now that there are some tools that they allow you to delete the data straight after uploading, which is it's a good thing. But there is these things to consider as well.
Mhm. You are telling that, yeah, we have to use this artificial intelligence in research with ethical and responsible, behavior mindset. But who will actually uh, fix this ethical boundary? Because there are many tools which is coming daily, and researchers are using that to write review paper or something like that. But there's no any fixed boundaries. What do you think that who should be first responsible for this to implement this ethical and ethical AI?
Obviously, there's different stakeholders. You've got the companies that developing the AI tools, and some of them are actually integrating now ethical frameworks into the development of the tools. In fact, I'm an advisor in some of these companies to help them with that. But not everyone is doing that. I would say that's the exception currently. There is, of course, the universities, and different universities that have very different approaches to that. It's still new. It's a disruptive technology that
Mhm.
I think we were not prepared in academia as well as in other fields. But for me, the ultimate responsibility is the individual. It's us. Each individual person how you use it. Um, One thing to note as an academic is that it takes you decades to
Definitely.
to build a career, and it only probably can take you a minute to destroy it by using an AI tool to write the paper, for example, for you, and then of course,
Not even
um,
paper, yeah, not even paper, because
yeah,
I've seen tools that is creating PhD thesis in a fraction of seconds.
exactly.
Mhm.
And the thing is that currently, both academics and reviewers, whether it's theses or papers or grants, we're becoming a lot more accustomed to the language constructs of Gen AI tools, the sentence structure of LLMs, specific words that they use again and again. So even without having detection tools, it's a lot easier as we get more accustomed to spot this. But for me, it's not about hiding. It's about this is an exciting tool, like the calculator. When it was first introduced, mathematicians were against that. They thought this is going to destroy maths. But of course, we know this is not the case. But it's how can I make the most use of it so that it gives me more time for what's more important for research, which is for me to do the writing, for me to do the critical thinking, to come up with
Mhm.
the ideas, um, to get the insights and connect the dots, and to disseminate the work.
You're right. And you have recently written on LinkedIn about how using artificial intelligence wrongly can lead to paper rejections. What are the ethical do's and don'ts researchers must keep in mind while using AI in academic writing?
Sure.
Mm.
Perhaps it may be useful if I give some examples of how I use and I would recommend researchers using AI tools. So I found that they're quite helpful for initial search and filtering. So let's say you want to do your literature review, whether it's for your PhD or for a paper or for a project you're doing. Um, you can, of course, do a manual searching of databases um, and reading some abstracts, but of course, now with the AI, with AI tools, you can have access to a wider pool of papers, and you can have an assistant. This is the research assistant bit I mentioned before. Then instead of manually searching databases and reading abstracts one by one, can help you to identify relevant papers much quicker. So instead of, let's say, using Web of Science or Google search and manually going through all these papers, you can have tools that can help you to scan these abstracts, identify which paper is the most relevant to your specific research questions. Um, but of course, for that, you need to have a clear research question, have clear criteria for relevance before you start. You need to know what's relevant, what's not. And so that then you can ask AI tools to flag those criteria. And what my principle is trust but verify. No matter how good the tool says it is, I would always verify AI recommendations by reading the whatever it comes out and the references and the citations and everything. Because again, I see it as my responsibility.
Mm.
Um, Another great thing I would say is building tables. So, as part of research, I spend a lot of times after having read papers and have some insights trying to create tables that, for example, compare data, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
And they take so much time to format, to filter, to enter the data manually.
Mhm.
Again, this is another use where your AI research assistant can really help you with that. Instead of manually creating the comparison tables, you use AI to help you organize the findings across multiple studies, and you can have different tables, for instance, in terms of the insights, the methodologies they used. But again, do check what it produces, and always add your own interpretations and insights that AI cannot provide. Um, Do you want me to go on with more examples, or these
No,
are
no,
a
no.
deck?
I'm just asking one more example from your side, maybe because I have seen that recently they're like Gemini and others, they have launched this Nano Banana app also. From that, we can create very good images also. Can we also use those images in paper writing? Is it?
Um, It depends on what type of images. If, let's say, you have a blog and you want to have an image of a relevant image to be generated for you, provided again you put the credit at the end saying this was generated by this tool, it's fine. Um, if you wanted to use it to create a diagram, for instance, for your thesis, a figure,
Mm,
uh, provided the data is yours, you have the data you provided, again, rather than doing manually.
mm,
Although in most cases, to be honest, nowadays you don't do it manually. You would use some sort of a tool, but it would be
mm,
a bit more design work involved. You can use an AI tool to help you generate that figure or that table or that visual or that diagram. But again, I would be transparent and say this figure, the data are mine, the data are humanly generated, but the actual design of the figure of the table was created using this tool.
that's great. Thank you. How can artificial intelligence tools help PhD students and postdocs accelerate progress, manage workload, and even improve their job applications or academic portfolios? Please give some suggestion on that.
Yeah, it's like the examples I mentioned before, because they help you, they save you time in all these very manual tasks that the formatting,
Okay.
the searching. It does increase productivity. Also, some of the tools that can give you some great insights, because what you can do is you can ask them for, let's say, you've got specific search keywords or a research question you're looking, and they provide you some papers. You can actually ask them to list them chronologically, visually. So, for instance, you can start to see, let's say that my topic was the use of AI in preventive healthcare, right?
Mm,
Um, I can see when I enter this search keyword and I get a visualization that research publications in this area, they started probably in 2020, but really you start to have a lot more papers in this area in 2023, 2024. So that kind of tells me that if this is the topic of my PhD, this is really where things took up for my research area. So it kind of gives me an insight into the history. I mean, obviously, AI is something that happens very lately, but if you have a different topic, you can go back into time and you can say, actually, most of the publications or most interest in this research I'm looking started in this year, and that's very, very helpful. I also find them helpful when doing systematic literature reviews, which is a very difficult, very robust, but takes a lot of time. Again, I do it initially the traditional way, so I will manually enter the search keywords into databases, define myself the inclusion exclusion criteria. But I will add another layer of research. I would use some tools that allow me to do semantic search. Now, the difference between keyword search and semantic search is, instead of putting specific words, you put, let's say, your research question. So you get additional results and maybe additional papers that you missed when you did your keyword search. So this augments further your research. You're still doing it the traditional way, but I guess you have an add-on. And again, that's why I say this is an example of where AI acts as your research assistant.
mhm. You're talking about AI as a research assistant. And now,
Yes.
yeah, now actually the things are changing so fast that there are many tools already available in the market and it's coming day by day. But now the system has changed to agentic AI. Every people, everyone can make an agent for themselves and they can use it for their own purposes. So what advice do you give for researchers and faculties? Do they also adopt these kinds of agentic AI for their teachings and research?
Yeah, it's a very topical subject, using agentic AI. The question again is which LLM they use, because of course they use a specific large language model, this
Yes.
agent AI, to get data.
Hmm.
Um, so even if you're developing your own agentic AI, if at the end of the day you use exactly the same LLM as others, the data or what you get out will not be that different. And this is why I've got that objection against using generative AI for writing, because your writing looks exactly the same as everyone else. There's a difference though, but this needs more resources and more advanced knowledge to create your own not LLM, but basically create your own databases where you've got your own data set and you train the agentic AI on your own data set. That adds more value because you give it a different data set, but that's hard because you need to do all this work.
That means we can go and we can develop some agentic AI as per our own own tone. That there are also many tools available, and I have seen in on LinkedIn, and also I have tested it, that they can read all your backgrounds and everything from LinkedIn and from social media, and they can make an agent based on your backgrounds, and that is matching with your tone of writing and everything. So what do you think that in the coming years, agentic AI is going to replace all the assistants and other things which is available now?
I'm not sure about that.
Yeah.
I can say a lot and more tools that now integrating AI features into there, so it's kind of become now a norm. The is not a novelty feature any longer.
Mhm.
From using Microsoft products, they have it inside, to using traditional packages for even coding or design. Um, that's why I think tools that you use for critical thinking that still require human input, human verification, they're not going to replace us. But tools where or activities that can be automated, like for instance, generation of citations of references.
Mhm.
Yeah, I see this type of activities, of course, being automated.
Okay, okay, thank you. You often talk about the unspoken rules of academia. Do you think AI can help uncover or democratize access to this hidden knowledge that only experienced mentors usually share?
Um, it potentially could, but again, I don't think the large language models will have that information in their databases. I don't think this is something that is shared.
Okay, okay. Okay, for
Because what effectively a lot of LLMs do is they're like large scrapers that have scraped the internet and a lot of web pages and other digital resources.
Mhm.
And it's these data that they interrogate, and they run correlation algorithms to they provide you with an output. Those unspoken rules that they're not written.
Thank you. And from the supervisor's perspective, how can artificial intelligence be used to enhance feedback and track student progress and improve mentorship quality? I think it plays a great role here.
Yes, it definitely can.
Mm.
Um, they've I think they can help. I would say not necessarily supervisors, but the whole supervision process. So quite often, and I was like that also as a PhD student. I'm sure many of your audience. I was feeling that I don't want to meet my supervisor unless I have produced something. I felt guilty, and of
Yes.
course, when you learn things, there will be weeks where you will not be very productive because you're
Yes.
uncertain.
Mm.
So in this case, I would treat AI as specific AI tools as I would
Mm.
say my second or third supervisor, not to give me answers, but to test out ideas. I would ask questions. Oh, I'm thinking of doing that. Or I'd like more information on the difference between those two research methodologies.
Mm.
Um, so it would be like an additional source, like another critical friend or a critical supervisor that I can test out things before I go into my supervisor. So that will make me feel more confident about it.
Mm. You're right. You're right. Now, talking about the AI literacy, what's your opinion that should AI literacy now be a core skill for every PhD student? And how can universities integrate it responsibly into research training?
It should be for any student at university level or even earlier. Um, and actually, I was in discussion with a university in the Gulf who
Hmm.
wants to develop training programs on that area. Um, some universities they do things formally or informally. So, for instance, in our institution, next week, we start the new term, and in every single module, in every single course, from undergraduate to postgraduate PhD, one of the first seminars we're doing is about responsible use of AI. And
Hmm.
we repeat it again and again and again, and we have developed also some policies. But it's not just training students; it's also training staff as well, faculty. There is a lot of skepticism, undoubtedly, in academia. I was one of them as well initially, as I mentioned, and I've got some colleagues, especially perhaps more senior and older ones, where they may not be so welcoming of new innovation. So training is essential, I would say, across all sectors and all staff, not just students.
Okay. Now, talking about the challenges, what are the biggest risks or misconceptions you have observed among researchers using AI in their academic workflow?
There's obviously the misconception that, well, I just need some help. I don't have enough time to do this assignment, this essay, this work. I don't get enough support. English is not my first language, so that's
Hmm.
why I used it. Um, it's the misconception that no one is going to find out. And I think the
Hmm.
worst misconception is that, so what? I'm going to use AI tools without thinking, I'm paying for my course, or my
Hmm.
family is paying, or my sponsor for me to learn. And if I let any form of digital technology do that for me, am I really learning? And
Hmm.
the other thing is what I mentioned about the data. Very few people think about the data, where your data go and who has access to it. We can get your data, especially if it's sensitive data, and publish it.
Hmm. Hmm. Okay, Professor, you have used many tools, like AI tools. Which tool do you think that this is the safest for researchers to be used? Any one
Um,
tool or something? Yeah.
I don't. I wouldn't want to pick up a specific tool because it would be like advertising. But I
Okay,
can talk
okay.
about
Hmm.
features of tools. Um, no matter which tool you use, I would say you need to maintain a complete transparency and documentation. So the key to any responsible AI use is in documenting exactly how you use that specific AI tool. And this is now accepted. A lot of universities, they accept that, they like that. It's like you reference, you use an idea, or you cite a paper, you need to reference it. So I would use it in exactly the same way. Um, I There have been some tools that were focusing very much on proofreading and
Hmm.
grammar, which when they started, they were doing an amazing job because they were just doing that. They will help you as a non-native speaker, or even as someone who may not be that good in grammar, to improve the grammatical and syntactic aspects of your writing. Uh, but unfortunately, a lot of these tools nowadays, because they're in competition with other AI tools, they've integrated more AI features, which means that even if you use these tools nowadays, there's very likely that detectors they're going to flag your work as AI generated. That's why I think going back to transparency. And I will generally be a bit more skeptical of tools that have AI detection features in them.
Okay. Okay, Professor, my last question to you on the vision for the future. Finally, how do you envision the future of academic research in the AI era, say 10 years from now?
10 years is a very long time. But I can probably see that. Are you familiar with the Amara of the innovation life cycle? It's
Mm,
basically it's a diagram, it's a framework that was developed by a scientist called Amara. That basically, and your listeners can Google that Amara or the innovation hype life cycle, innovation life cycle. It
okay.
basically shows you a curve that happens, and you can put every single piece of technology in there, so you can see when it's first appears into the research space or into the media, there's maybe a bit of interest. Then suddenly there's so much excitement, but then that dies out, and then
Mm,
it's normalized and it goes into the market. And that has happened with the majority of technology. So I see currently where we're towards the hype of AI, but I will see it will be more normalized. There would be a lot more regulation and a lot more policies and instructions on how to use it. I see that now that there is a lot more tools out there and there's a lot of competition, if the regulation and the policies support what I spoke today about the responsible use of AI, we'll see a lot more companies incorporate them because that will be very fundamental to their own business. Um, and I see them basically used in the same way we use calculators. So
mm,
we don't think about using calculators today. It's just integrated into our workflow. I think it would be
yes.
the same in a decade's time. It would be a function, a tool that would help us to save more time, be more productive by doing a lot of the tasks we do now manually and giving us more time for the critical thinking, the insights, and all these things that make research amazing.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Emmanuel, for sharing such practical and inspiring insights on how artificial intelligence is reshaping research and academic careers. Your guidance truly helps researchers see AI not as a threat, but as a partner in discovery and innovation. To all our listeners, if you have found this conversation valuable, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to AI Research World for more enlightening discussion with global experts. Until next time, keep learning, keep exploring, and let AI empower your research journey. Thank you.